Welcome back to the Chronic Couch with Eric and Chris. We were supposed to be back last weekend, but as you know,
I definitely know.
when you're dealing with chronic pain and injuries, you can wake up and something could not feel right. So Chris had a little hiccup last weekend, and therefore we weren't able to shoot, but we're back at it today. What happened, man?
Yeah, so as Eric mentioned, life be lifing, and that's just something that comes with chronic injuries and illnesses. But woke up last week and I had a weird pain sensation like in my groin area. And it was right along the line that my incision is for my bypass graft. So pretty much, as I mentioned before, I'm unzipped from here because of the fasciotomy, and then all the way up to my hip because of the them taking the great saphenous vein to do my fempop bypass with. And I woke up with this weird pain along the incision line, and I couldn't really pinpoint where it was, but it was this weird feeling where it would just pinch every now and then, which is weird. It wasn't like a constant, it was very intermittent. Like every couple of minutes, it would just be like, pinch, I'm here, and just go away. And I would just go about my life. But then I would sit in different positions. I would try to stand up. I would try to walk. And it was just kind of persistent on what was going on. So at this point in my life, because of everything I've been through so far, at the sign of anything, I go straight to urgent care. So that's something that I told Eric. I just hit him up. I'm like, look, I got to go to urgent care because there's a lot of things that can go wrong, especially while I'm still in this healing period from a lot of the surgeries and upcoming surgeries. So my body's in this constant state of flux of, we just finished this one recovery process. Now you're gearing us up for another one. So it just has these different responses that essentially kind of keep us and my body and I in this fight or flight type situation. So went to go get it checked out, got an ultrasound on the vein, and everything seemed to be fine. There was no DVT or deep vein thrombosis / blood clot for people out there who want some medical terminology. And it was something that I think was it was very uncomfortable, but luckily I live right across the street from a Kaiser, so I can go over there whenever I can. And they're probably tired of seeing me right now. So,
Yeah.
But yeah, everything turned out to be fine. The pain ended up subsiding, and that was just why we had to postpone a week. But I'm at this point now where my body throws something to me every couple of days just to say, oh no, we're still here.
Yeah.
We still got something going on. And it's just, playing mental gymnastics with it at this point.
So did you just monitor the symptoms? What did they tell you to do? Just go home, and if things progress, did they tell you to, if things do progress, go into the hospital?
Yeah, pretty much those exact words.
Yeah.
Once the ultrasound came back negative, they just said, we'll monitor it, and if it gets worse, just come back to ER. And my stance was, well, if I'm coming back to ER, what could potentially go wrong, right? I'm like, why don't you just tell me that now? What am I going to learn in the ER that I'm not going to learn that you can't tell me right here?
Yeah.
So, I think that's something that is, it was a point of, I won't say frustration, but more so confusion, because whatever they're going to tell me 200 feet away with the same machinery and technology that you have access to, you can tell me right now.
Right.
So it was one of those things where, I've had my love and hate battles with insurance over the last 6 or 7 months, but I think the main thing is that everything's cool.
I think it's kind of crazy because in your situation with your injury, you're dealing with veins and arteries and some serious stuff that could lead to, which thank God did not happen, but you don't F around with, right?
No.
So I'm sure you would stress the importance to not only yourself, but to people listening and watching. If you're dealing with something similar to what you're going through, get yourself to a doctor, because things could switch on a dime, right?
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's important to say whatever is going on, right? The reason I'm so cautious is because when I was in a rehab hospital, my leg still got infected, right? So it's one of those things where I don't take chances regardless of what's going on. One of my doctors in rehab, he just said, look, we're not in a game of taking chances. There's a 1 out of 10 chance this could be infected, and we're not going to take a chance. So I'm going to give you the meds anyway. Guess what? I ended up being that 1 in 10 chance. So what are the odds? You know what I mean? So 10% chance of it getting infected in, you know, a hospital, which can be a cesspool of bacteria, of course. But I mentioned it last week, and again, I want to harp on it again this week, is you have to advocate for yourself. You already pay insurance
100%.
monthly anyway. So why am I going to pay for something that I'm not going to use at the turn of every sense of pain, right?
Right.
And it's one thing to be Mr. Macho or Miss Macho and say, oh, I'm going to just tough it out. But if, again, car insurance is one thing, right? You have it as an insurance policy because it's like, all right, if you get into an accident, whatever. But medical insurance, use that shit because you're paying for it, and you can go over there, you can, you know, find your nearest hospital, your nearest urgent care, know where they are just in case. Is the one thing I would tell people, is just know the exit route if you have to get to one.
Yeah.
And that is what I can't stress enough, is you just have to be willing to get past this, oh, I'm going to push through it, and these different mentalities of just being stronger than your illness. It's okay to also go to the doctor. I was that person for the first, 25 years of my life where I'm going to just tough it out. But now, because of the situation I'm in, I realize the importance of having access to it and then getting my ego out of the way to actually go get care that I could potentially need, but I'd rather know it's nothing than have something just sneak up on me.
Right.
Yeah.
So stressing the importance of listening to your body and advocating for yourself. And in my situation with back pain, it's different in the sense that you don't want to go to the hospital because you don't want to deal with the lines, waiting in line, because even if you're screaming pain, they're not going to admit you, right?
Yep.
So my situation's a little different, where if you people with back pain or nerve pain, if you can't, and if it's really bad and you can wait to see someone, like see your surgeon or your doctor, that would be my recommendation. But of course, there's been 2 times for me where I had to go to the hospital. So I think let's shift gears a little bit and talk about what you started mentioning, which was insurance. So my insurance situation, I'm luckily and very fortunate to have insurance through my job. And I have definitely seen the advantages that brings. I have United Healthcare, and I wanted to talk about Luigi Mangione,
Okay.
who had United Healthcare. At no point am I condoning killing someone.
We want to make that very clear.
Yes.
If I can edit a disclaimer in here, if for my people listening, we're saying it in all bold letters, Helvetica font. We are not condoning that behavior.
No murder.
Right.
No murder allowed. But I do understand the frustration and the anger that maybe Luigi Mangione was that was festering within him. Now Luigi had, and the only reason why I'm bringing him up is A, because I have United Healthcare, and B, because we almost have a similar injury. He has, and I had to Google it's called spondylolithy.
Damn.
Spondylolisthesis. One more time, spondylolisthesis. And that is basically lower back pain with muscle tightness, pain and numbness, and tingling in the thighs and the buttocks. I have all of that. So it's almost like our stories are somewhat parallel. My point being is that my insurance has been great and has come through and has been quite clutch for many situations. All of my CAT scans, my MRIs, of course you have to reach your deductible and all that stuff. But it has helped through and through, from physical therapy to the pharmacy, getting medications. And so my insurance was great up until the last surgery that I had to have. Well, actually 2 surgeries. where I was supposed to have this disc replacement. So let me take you back really quick, and then I'll slow down on the rambling. But I had my first discectomy, L4, L5 discectomy in 2022. So they went in and they basically cut off the herniation, right? Your herniated disc, it's like a jelly donut. So when the disc oozes out, it compresses onto your spinal nerve. That's what causes all the nerve pain. That was in 2022. They did the discectomy. Fast forward to 2024 when I re-herniated in the same spot, L4, L5. And it had gotten so bad that they said, this kid being 30-year-old at the time, 31-year-old, he needs a disc replacement. And so up until the surgery, it was, and again, there's a waiting period. There's like a 4 to 5 month waiting period. And it's basically my surgeon battling with the insurance company up until surgery, and everything was looking good. The green light was flashing green. And my dad had flown out. My mom was en route because it was a more serious, intense surgery. Maybe that's invasive. It was a more invasive procedure, this disc replacement. Mm-hmm. They would go through my stomach, move my organs. I forget the kind of surgeon, thoracic maybe. Mm-hmm. So that requires 2 surgeons. So there was a lot more that was going into getting this approval from United Healthcare. So a surgeon would have to go in, push my organs to the side, and go in through my stomach, versus the discectomy is when they go through your back.
Interesting.
So my dad's out here. Ironically, we're walking into the weed shop, mm-hmm. and it wasn't for me. I get a call, and it's from my surgeon's office, and they said, they didn't approve it. They denied it. They were kind of flabbergasted themselves. I really don't push blame on my surgeon or their office. I really do trust them. I think they were super proactive and advocating on my behalf. I don't think if I were to step in and intervene, if that would have helped. But all this to say is the suspense and the buildup of waiting that long, when you're in so much pain for so long, the emotional distress that was leading up to that, and then when I got that call, I mean, just now it's like it takes my breath away because it's so upsetting. So I ended up getting the discectomy, and thank God, as angry as I was at my insurance company, I have been told that insurance companies like Anthem is the worst. And I'm just speaking in terms of this disc replacement surgery. Supposedly, and I've done the research, this surgery is very expensive. Mm-hmm. And they don't want to perform it if they don't have to. Yeah. Now, United Healthcare wound up getting screwed anyways, and I'm kind of happy about that, in a sense that I ended up having to stay in the hospital. I ended up having to have more scans. They ended up spending more money on me having this repeat discectomy versus if I were to have the surgery that I was supposed to have.
Right.
It came down to the reason why I wasn't approved for the surgery was because they had all these factors. It was like my age mixed with one scan compared to 3 months later. There wasn't enough growth in terms of the herniation or something. Mm-hmm. It was BS.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what happened with my insurance. So I kind of get Luigi's frustration. Again, I wasn't ever thinking of murdering anyone, right, except I was a mess. Now, that surgery, I ended up having this discectomy. That surgery ended up getting infected. And so I had to stay in the hospital. I had to go back. It was a whole thing. Mm-hmm. But if I were to have an infection with getting the disc replacement, right? Because the disc replacement, they're putting an implant in you. They're replacing your disc with an artificial disc. Now, if that were to have gotten infected, that would have been bad.
Yeah.
That would have been going through my stomach again, removing. And so when I went in and had this infection, they were able to, and again, the infection happened 2 weeks after this discectomy, the repeat discectomy. So the surgeon was able to see on the scans, he was like, yo, I know you're really sick right now with this infection, but if there's any good news to come out of this is that we're able to see that this discectomy worked, and this is the surgeon, he's hopeful that this will be it. He thinks maybe the disc replacement was good that didn't happen.
Yeah.
So maybe there's a reason for everything. And as angry and as upset and as distraught as I was with my insurance, United Healthcare, not pulling through and giving me the surgery that I was supposed to have, I am so grateful because I was able to stay in a hospital, which was a whole nother experience.
Oh, man.
That was
yes, it is
quite a shitty experience. That has nothing to do with my insurance. That has to do with the healthcare system. That's a whole nother situation.
Conversation.
Yeah.
We'll get another episode.
Yep. I had a roommate, the whole thing. Those poor nurses who work their asses off. I have so much respect for the healthcare system. My mom was in the healthcare system for over 30 years. So yeah, that's kind of my insurance story. I am so grateful to have insurance through my job. I have been in a situation where, and that will lead us into talking about your situation, where I didn't have insurance and I was paying independently for insurance. I had Oscar. So as shitty as United Healthcare may have been towards myself, Luigi Mangione, and millions in this country, I think there's a huge, I don't know, is epidemic the right word, in terms of insurance screwing over their patients. I am grateful for what it has done.
Yeah. I just want to kind of clarify something for our listeners out there. I know this, but maybe they don't. And we kind of just breezed over it when you were talking about the timeline of events. But you mentioned your family was here. Everybody was coming in. Tell the listeners when you found that out versus when your surgery was supposed to happen.
So again, I've done this by myself. I don't have any family out here, and so I don't know. Maybe that's a story for another time. The isolation, but when I was so excited to have my family here get me through this, because I was dealing with the pain and doing the day-to-day, trying to get my socks on and my underwear on by myself. So my mom was actually supposed to be the one to fly out, right? She's the healthcare lady in our family, and so she's great. Got great bedside manner. When I first hurt myself and I couldn't move or walk, she was bathing me, doing the whole thing.
Shout out to all the moms out there too, by the way.
Which I think we're going to get our moms on here. Because,
and dads.
Yes, yeah, and dads for sure. I think it would be great to have a mother's perspective, a mom's perspective on all this, because I know it's been hard for her too, especially being across the country. To answer your question, the timeline was my dad flew out. Again, my mind was so out of it, so I can't pinpoint exactly, but I want to say he flew out maybe 2 days or a day before the scheduled surgery. I had a disc replacement already scheduled.
Right.
The doctors were both surgeons were all ready to go. They were booked, and it was the night before. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I just want people to know how fast it changed for you.
It happened less than 10 hours before my surgery,
which is insanity.
That's the race that the surgeons are going up against with the insurance company. And my surgeon finally, after my doctor's office, right, because the surgeons are so busy, they don't really chime in until they have to at the very end. So the doctor's office was battling against United Healthcare, pleading my case with all my scans, my pain, my ability not to put any weight down on this leg, I'm stuck in bed, all of it. And so the day before surgery, I want to say this is at like maybe 6 p.m. It's after hours, and my surgeon is battling it out with United Healthcare. Unfortunately, they lost the battle,
Right.
and I got the discectomy, and that's where we're at.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's important too, is people's frustrations need to be directly attributed to the right place. Because I feel like a lot of people, when they get decisions like this or when they get these phone calls, the initial reaction is to be mad at who's on the other side of the phone, right? And that's going to be a receptionist. That's not going to be your surgeon. That's not going to be anybody that was basically playing devil's advocate to your situation to not get you what you needed. That decision came from somebody you'll probably never talk to.
And I actually, and it's coming back to me now.
Okay.
I did have numerous phone calls with United Healthcare, with the insurance company. And I'm sure this doesn't just go for United Healthcare. I'm sure it goes for Blue Cross, right? That's what it's called,
Blue Cross Blue Shield. Yeah, you got a lot of them out there.
Anthem, Aetna. I'm sure it happens with all of them. I did have a few phone conversations, and I intervened and I stepped in because, like you said, you have to advocate for yourself. And yes, the surgeon medically knows what's going on, but I was hoping that if they could hear me and hear the pain and my inability to barely speak, because I was a mess.
Yeah.
And again, this go around, I wasn't on pain medicine. And they were nice, but I was just talking to, I don't know, was it representatives? Or it wasn't the person I needed to talk to at the top,
Exactly.
which is who because they wouldn't lead me to that person. They kind of cut you off. So my surgeon was able to get to the person at the top, and they basically said he needs to do the discectomy again, and if he re-herniates, this is the bullshit, if he re-herniates, then we'll approve the disc replacement. So it's almost like they want to put you through all this crap again, all this recovery, and then if you re-herniate again, then we'll go in, do another surgery, and give you the disc replacement.
Because the money is in the treatment, not the cure.
Yeah.
And that's something I'm sure everybody out there knows when it comes to healthcare. And if you don't know, I hope you never find out, because dealing with insurance companies can become the bane of your existence very quickly if you're ever in a situation like this. And one other thing, just before we hop off of your situation, was the importance for our listeners to understand when you have these complex surgeries, it's very important to know what's going on. So for example, in Eric's situation, there's less of a chance of a serious infection when you have less donor sites, right? Donor sites are going to be entry sites for the original surgery. You go in through the back, you mentioned, right? Very simple. Okay, it's like you're going in for your ACL. There's going to be a couple of incisions on your knee. There's less things going on, which means there's less chance for things to get infected. Now, when you have a complex situation where you're moving organs and you're going through with cameras and all of that stuff, that's a lot more to get to, which means there's a lot more points of potential infections, especially when you're moving organs out the way, going in, putting something else there that's a foreign object technically.
Yeah.
There's a lot more chances for things to get infected. So for anybody out there going through the simplest of procedures, please understand what is actually happening. If you can't get a hold of your doctor and you maybe forget about it in pre-op, go on YouTube and research what is being done, because at least you'll be able to conceptually understand the potential paths of complications or what are best practices before and after surgery. Yes, you should be getting that information in your pre-op package, your pre-op conversations, but please equip yourself with the information pertaining to your surgery from top to bottom.
And the irony is that my little discectomy, it got infected. So it can happen. It happened to me. And my only advice would be, and I'll just be black and white, is keep your keep your dressing on, keep your bandage on. Mine had come off and I didn't even know it. And I was showering and essentially it was exposed because when the bandage ripped off, it took off the stitches. So I was bathing and lying in sheets with an exposed wound. And yeah, you know, it's like...
The germs are small, bro.
Yeah.
Germs and bacteria are microscopic for a reason.
Yeah, and they told me that it happens from bedding. It can be clean bedding, but once you're laying in it, and you know, it's there's room for infection to happen. So just like you said, make sure you know your aftercare, because in those circumstances you can't 100% rely on whoever's here taking care of you or your surgeon. You gotta somehow be on top of it.
Yeah, and if you are in a situation where your donor site or your incision site is a place that you can't see, whether it's your back, whether it's, you know, the bottom of your foot, whether it's like your thigh, you obviously, you know, unless you're super flexible, you're not lifting your shit up to look at it.
Yeah.
Like, just have somebody like a homie just, you know, either come check on you and say, hey, how's this looking? Or take a picture, look at it yourself. But your incision sites need to be studied on a day-to-day basis and look for the smallest things that could potentially be wrong, because infections, they start fast.
Yeah, I ended up getting a seroma, which my entire lower back filled up with fluid, and it was really hot to touch, and it felt like a hot air balloon. And that's when I started feeling sick, and then I started, the pus started coming out and oozing. I mean, my whole back was swollen. The incision site swelled up like this. And then, yeah, and when that happens, it's like, okay, you got to go in and you got to get treatment fast, because infection can be fatal.
Yeah. And again, for the smallest of incisions, right? I think that if they really get on the right path and you have the unfortunate intersection of a lot of things just happening at the right time, these things take off really fast. And, you know, again, you can be in a hospital and still get sepsis and still get these things that can take you out in a matter of hours.
Yep.
So again, please, we can't stress that enough. If you do have surgery, you know, unless you're in something that you cannot remove, like a cast, or you know, some doctors prefer you not to have a cam boot. I mean, prefer you not to take your foot out of a cam boot. Like when I have my fasciotomy closed up, my surgeon said, do not take this off. I don't want you doing anything. It's going to be fine. I did my job. But if you feel certain things, come in and I'll take it off. But I don't want you touching this. So if you can find a surgeon like that, hey, remember them, appreciate them, because those are the true homies that will set you up for success at home. And they give you a plan of action if things do go wrong. So if whether it's a routine checkup, whether something's going wrong at urgent care, whether you're coming out of a surgery, make sure you leave the office with the plan of action. Sit there until your doctor or surgeon gives you a plan of action. If something goes wrong, what do I do? If that doesn't work, what do I do? Have A, B, and C lined out, because if you don't want to be in a situation where you don't know what the hell is going on, because you don't have a medical background. So you're just thinking like, oh, damn, this itches or this hurts. I have a fever. Like, I need to have known these things before I left the doctor's office.
And I'd say also if you don't trust your surgeon, if you have the time, well, you didn't have the time. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Because yours was like a 911 situation. But if you're kind of dealing with back pain, or you've torn your knee or an ankle or something, I would say shop around a little bit for the right surgeon and doctor. Don't shop around too much, but maybe get two opinions. Don't just rely on one opinion. And then if you get two opinions and those opinions differ majorly, get a third. Yeah.
That's actually a perfect alley-oop into my situation, because I basically had my situation with my surgery. And again, I want to preface this with, I actually have a love-hate relationship with my insurance, right? Which I feel like most people do, right? I think that Kaiser is perfect for preventative care, right? Go in there, You know, they got these nice buildings. Everything's cool. I love my PCP. She's amazing. Every doctor I'd come in contact with when nothing was wrong is perfect, right? Because, you know, there's nothing going on. You get your blood test, all these different screens every few years that's necessary. Everything's smooth. But, and I'm not even sure if there's an insurance out there that is like this. But when shit hits the fan, that's when you find out how your insurance really is, right? So in your situation, I'm pretty sure the same thing. Like, oh, labs are fine. Eric's great. Go about your business. Life's good. But then when things go wrong, it's a matter of, okay, let's find out what it really is. Now, in my situation, I pay for healthcare out of pocket, right? So I'm going for the bronze package, which is Kaiser's lowest thing. And I'm thinking like, all right, cool. I'm healthy. No big deal. You know, I've been healthy, so I'm just going to kind of just get what I need to make sure I have what I can get by on and get my yearly checkups and all these things. Right. So when the injury happened, straight to the emergency room. And again, perfect responsiveness, go right to ER. I'm in there. They do all the scans. They do all the X-rays, the Doppler test, all these things. The right surgeons are all in the right place. And again, I'm feeling super taken care of because I'm getting the emergency care that I need. Now, when I wake up from surgery, then I'm in that post-operative phase, which again, I hope nobody else out there finds himself in this situation. But basically what happens is I come out of surgery and then they send me I'm in the ICU for the week. So actually a couple of days rather. They send me to the ICU, and in the ICU, you're getting around the clock attention because they need to make sure your wounds aren't opening, you're not getting a fever, any post-operative complications. So again, I'm still feeling taken care of. But then we get into this chapter of they send me down to a lower tier floor because I'm technically out of the emergency zone, right? I'm no longer, my surgery is no longer life-threatening. So they take me downstairs, they D-tier you, and I spend about 5 days there. But then what happens is the doctors come in, they're checking on you, they're changing your wounds and everything, which is again cool. But then they want to get you started on PT ASAP. So I'm wondering to myself, why am I starting PT when I just lost a shit ton of blood, which I could have died from? And then why are all these people in the room trying to get me to move a lot quicker than I feel like I should be moving?
Now, is that the medical staff's directive, or is that like, why are they wanting you to do PT right away?
That is an insurance directive.
I was going to say.
Which I found out because, as you mentioned, what happens is the longer you stay in a hospital, the more they have to pay, right? So in my situation, it's a little bit different because Kaiser is my provider and they're my hospital, right? So they're having these internal situations where basically the insurance arm is saying, we need to get his ass up out of here because not only was his surgery expensive.
It's costing him an arm and a leg.
It's costing them an arm and a leg, but luckily not me an arm and a leg, right? Yeah. So I'm thinking to myself like, okay, PT is in there really trying to push me, really trying to get me to stand up, to walk, because they want to discharge me because that bed could go to somebody else.
Right.
They come in there the first day and they're trying to get me to stand up. I can't sit up without passing out, right? So Chris, today's goal is to get you to stand up. I sit up, I'm back down because I'm getting lightheaded immediately.
And are you aware of the rush of why they're trying to?
At the time, no.
Okay, because you didn't have the knowledge, or just because you're out of it?
Exactly,
or a little both?
A little bit of both, right?
Okay.
And we both unfortunately have way too much knowledge about the medical system from experience now, but you really don't know. But I do think it's a little weird that I'm being rushed. And then I even tell my doctors that I'm like, I feel like they're trying to rush me up out of here. And advocating for yourself, you have to speak up, because if you don't, they're just going to continue the process to try to get you up out the door and out of their hands. So I tell my surgeon number one, he comes in, hey, doc, I feel like they're trying to rush me up out of here. Surgeon number two comes in, doc, they're trying to rush me up out of here. Surgeon number three come in, hey, they tried to get me to stand up yesterday and I almost passed out. So I'm yelling it.
And what's crazy is no one wants to stay in the hospital. And if you're saying that, it's like
Exactly.
You're surrendering to like, I need help.
Yes.
I need a professional medical help, and I need to be in this spot.
Correct. And that is the perfect way to explain it. trust me, I don't want to fucking be here either, but I need to be here. And I know that. And if my mentally, like if I'm super stubborn when it comes to shit like this, right? I want to be out. I want to be up and moving. So if I'm telling you I need to stay in a hospital bed, something's horribly wrong. So I'm assuming something goes back where the surgeons talk to insurance and they're like, look, you can't do this. Every person that comes in that room that's not my parents, I'm telling, I can't do this. I can't stand up. I can't do these things. Don't rush me up out of here. So I get to about a week out from the surgery, and this is Wednesday night. Now, this is where things get a little wild. Now, I think Tuesday, somebody came in and said, oh, well, we're going to send you to a rehab facility. Basically, you're going to go there. You're going to get around-the-clock medical attention. It'll be a little bit less strenuous than this, but you'll be getting 3 hours of PT a day, 3 hours of PT, a mixture of PT, OT, and speech therapy. But I didn't need speech therapy. So basically what it shakes out to is I get 2 hours of PT a day and then 1 hour of occupational therapy a day. Okay. So in my situation, what that looks like is I get up, I go to the gym, or I have the PT come into the room, move my leg around, make sure I'm keeping everything strong for my knee and with the X-Fix in, and then an hour of occupational therapy where they come in, they help me bathe, all that types of things, right? And I'm thinking to myself like, okay, that sounds reasonable. I'm still going to be in a hospital, so I have access to what's going on, and it's really important to just make sure I have that security. Now, when they come in on Wednesday, the 25th, and they're like, oh, we got you a spot over at not California Rehab Institute, excuse me. That was where my friend worked, but we got you a spot at Hollywood Press. Now, Hollywood Press has 28 beds, I believe, in their rehab facility, and I think 27 of them were full. So one just opened up, and they're like, Chris, we got to get you there tonight by 6 o'clock because we can't wait until tomorrow because that bed might be gone. So I'm like, cool.
Is that the video of you in the back of the car being transported?
Yes, exactly. So there's footage out there. My bags are like, I'm bagged up. Get me over there because these spots, again, to your point earlier about how fast things change, that bed could be taken by somebody else in a matter of hours.
And the swirling thoughts, I'm sure, that are going through your head at this point, not only like, fuck, am I going to lose my leg? Even though you're being told at this point, you should be okay. You're gonna, but I can't imagine. Anyways, go on.
No, it's a wild time, bro. It is a wild time indeed. So I got all my stuff. My parents are there, and I am supposed to leave Kaiser West LA at 6 p.m. I don't end up leaving until 9 p.m. And that's on dispatch. They got LA traffic. I'm not blaming them whatsoever. But Kaiser was essentially getting me into this rehab facility, and again, kudos to them because I understand while I'm not an emergency anymore, at least they're sending me somewhere where I can get the continued care that I need. Right. So 10 p.m. the 25th, I get over to Hollywood Press. I get situated around like 10:30, 10:45, and then they have to do their intake. So basically what happens is in Hollywood Press in particular, a lot of their patients that are incoming usually have a lot of like drug issues, and they have to do a lot of these. There's unfortunately a lot of sexual violence in that area. So they have to do a full body scan. They have to like basically, check you for needles. They have to make sure, you haven't been assaulted physically or sexually, all these different things. And then that also gives them, it also gives them the baseline to say, okay, well, Chris came in this way. So if anything happens, we know it happened here, which is a really fucking terrible thing to have to do. But I make light of the situation because, I mean, it's for me, it was a little awkward because the thing I tell people, because again, comedies and humor is my coping mechanism. Right. And that's how I make it through these types of things is, the reason I give the dates is because the 25th at 10:45 p.m. is an hour and 15 minutes before my 33rd birthday. Right. So not only am I spending my 33rd birthday in the hospital, but I'm spending my birthday with a finger in my ass, making sure I haven't been
Jesus.
like, tampered with per se. Right. And I was, again, I think that for me, that is my coping mechanism. And it's a very uncomfortable situation for a lot of people to be in. Right. These nurses, these doctors, they don't want to be in this situation either. Yeah. And for me, a way that I can de-stress the situation for everybody involved is let's just have a laugh about it. Right. I think it makes everybody at ease. And it makes me feel a little bit better because, okay, I know I got people here I can laugh and joke with.
Right.
And it kind of sets that stage to where, okay, we're going to be in this marriage for a couple of weeks. I'm not anybody out here that's going to freak you out. Like, I want y'all to know, like, when you come into this room, you may be dealing with hell down the hall. But when you come into Chris's room, it's going to be laid back. We're going to have a good time. Even though things may be serious, I think that there's something to be said about providing a safe space for people.
For sure.
Yeah.
100%.
And that really kicked off, that situation. So I spent my 33rd birthday in the hospital. And, I had my close group of friends come by. And I think that it was really important to have that support system for that. So for you, having your family come in and they're just there for you regardless of what happens.
Right.
Right. For me, that was, a couple of my best friends, my parents, my girlfriend, and everybody was just there for me. And it was just super close knit. They brought snacks, we had they brought some games and stuff like that. So super chill. But I sell that to say, to get back on the insurance track, is I was supposed to be there for a week, right? And Kaiser had given me a week of, okay, Chris, you're going to go to rehab for a week. Mm-hmm. I ended up staying there for, I think, almost a month. I think I was there for 5 weeks. And every single day, Kaiser has to pay. Mm-hmm. Right. But again, I'm not able to go home because my leg, I have an open wound. And this is, again, to your point where everything happens for a reason. They were about to send me home. And literally 2 days before I was about to go home, my incision got infected. So then, the staff at Hollywood Press was like, you can't fucking send him home. Because he could legit die.
So then, do you have to go back to the hospital?
No.
They did it all there.
They did it all there, but it was the people at Hollywood Press really advocating for me because they're the ones that are seeing me every day. Because I'm not at Kaiser anymore. I'm off Kaiser's hands, right? They just know I'm at a rehab facility. And they're going to allow me 7 days to get healed and go about my business. Right. The people at Hollywood Press, they really advocated for me. It was like, no, you can't send him home because he could either die. This gets really bad with an infection, and it could escalate very, very quickly. But it goes back to us saying the treatment the money's in the treatment, not the cure.
For sure.
Right. So, long story short, similar to you, the insurance ended up paying a lot more than they wanted to because they tried to rush me out of this situation. So, I just want to summarize by saying healthcare workers, healthcare staff, they are the ones that are your friends. Respect them, please. It is not their fault that you're in this situation. It is not their fault that your insurance is trying to reject you from a different process or a different procedure. If anything, they're going to be the ones that advocate for you even more because you're not being a dick to them, right? So whoever you come into contact with, on a frontline basis, they are your homies. They're your best friends, and befriend them and make sure that, you're not being an asshole to them because they're going to be the ones to stand up for you because they're the ones that are seeing you every day, not insurance.
Yeah. I saw firsthand, and I think the healthcare system really took a huge hit, or I know, when COVID happened, and I saw my mom go in and out of the hospital dealing with that. And I think that's when the healthcare system really took, like I said, they took a huge hit. So when you're going through this, and if you're going through this, or if you've gone through it, or if you're gonna go through it, do your best not to take out your pain, your anger, your frustration, all your emotion out on the healthcare workers. There is a problem that you and I have experienced, and I've seen, and I've dealt with the insurance companies. And again, I don't know if this is the right word, but I feel like it's almost an epidemic of people and patients getting screwed by insurance. So if I can throw a few tips and join in at you guys, is advocate for yourself, do your homework, try and use whatever brain power you have left to know what's going on. And because there's a chance that you're getting screwed. And nor does Chris, want that to happen to you.
Yeah, and I would say another pro tip that is coming out of this is if you have questions about this type of stuff, we're here.
For sure.
That's the whole point of us doing the Chronic Couch, is because we're living this.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that is one of the reasons why we wanted to start this, because for our listeners out there or our watchers on YouTube, we want to be able to answer questions from you based on our experience. Are we going to sit here and claim all the medical knowledge about your situation? No, but we at least can give you guidance and tips on navigating your situation, you know, if we can. And I think that's super important. And I would just say again, for the third time today, advocate for yourself, because you have to tell somebody, I'm not okay. And sometimes insurance companies are going to want proof of that, which is going to be very hard to prove, you know. But again, if you have to find a way to prove it, to say, look, I need this, or I don't want you to have to go to the lengths of getting an infection for it to be proof.
Yeah.
And I just want people to realize that it is a very tough uphill battle, but you cannot fucking give up.
Yeah.
You cannot fucking give up, because the moment you give up and you give that ground, they're going to swoop in and say, all right, you're going to go home. We're going to discharge you. And this is, you know what, fuck it. This is only, this is going to go over longer today, because as you can tell, we're really passionate about insurance.
Sure.
And, you know, so people out there that are, you know, if you're in LA or Atlanta traffic, you can just hang out with us a little bit more. But another case of insurance, and I'm not going to limit this to Kaiser. I'm going to put this on an entire umbrella here.
Okay.
But home health is some bullshit. Home health is some bullshit. Okay. So I think that, and it depends, because like I said, I'm not going to limit this to Kaiser, because I've heard this from friends with other providers that will have they'll have whatever insurance, but they have a home health situation. Okay. Now, the way home health was set up in my situation is your insurance gives you an allotment of visits from a provider to come in and do therapy. Okay. Now that can be physical therapy, that can be wound dressing, that can be a variety of other things, occupational therapy, speech therapy, whatever it is. Now, the individual frontline workers that work with these home health care situations are not bad people. I want to get that out the way.
For sure.
Now, my issue is insurance's relationship with home health care, because you're going to get an allotment that is not enough for what you need. So for example, in my situation, I came home, I was discharged from my rehab facility after a month there. And I came home with my legs still open. Okay. So I was on this very couch. Obviously, it's been cleaned, so don't worry about it, right? And I was on the other side. I was on this very couch, but every single day I needed wound care so that my wound didn't get reinfected. Okay. So when I said shout out to the moms out there, my mom, she was in the weeds with me on this one, because Kaiser allotted me 3 visits a week, which is pretty much every other day. But again, I need wound change every day because my wound cannot get reinfected. So I want to give a special shout out to my vascular surgeon, which is one of the very few people I'll name in our conversations by name, but Dr. Liebel at West LA. He was my vascular surgeon. He was the first surgeon I saw, and he was the one that did the FemPot bypass along with Dr. Mueller, who was another person on the vascular part. But Dr. Mueller, I went in for a follow-up, and this was before I was discharged from Hollywood Press. My mom was in the room with me, and she was freaking out because they knew that I was getting discharged from the rehab facility. And my mom said, how am I supposed to do this? You know, how am I supposed to change this every day? Like, I go to rehab, and in rehab, they're changing it every day. So she's getting a chance to really look at it. But she's like, how the fuck am I supposed to do this at home by myself? And Dr. Liebel said, you're going to do it better than anybody else out there because it's your son and you give a damn.
Yeah.
Right. So that is super important for, people out there to hear, is whether it's, a mother figure, a father figure, a best friend, any sort of person that you can kind of lean on in these times of need. Identify that person, and before anything ever is wrong in your life, tell them thank you. That's your emergency contact, right? So whether that's a friend, homie, girlfriend, whatever it is, appreciate them, because you're going to need them sometimes in ways that you may not have think possible. So we bought the supplies. We had it shipped here from the house, everything we had at the doctor's office. And my mom was doing wound changes every single day. She's unwrapping my leg. My calf is outside of my body. And she got her mask on. I got my mask on, and we're doing wound care. We're doing wound care every single night. And then it becomes this weird game where there were times where before we got our particular providers for home health care, we were out on an island because home health care was trying to say, okay, we went out and assessed, and he needs more than 3 days a week. Like, we need to be over there every single day. Kazi was like, nah, you just need to go 3 times a week. So then there was this weird period where my mom, between me finally getting approved for the days, my mom was doing my wound care every single night. Every single night, it looked like this. 5 o'clock would roll around. She would cook dinner, because at this point I can't really like stand either, right? And I can't put pressure on the leg, so I'm on a walker. My mom's cooking dinner at like 5:30. We eat. We watch NBA games because the season has just kicked off. And then between 7:15 and 7:30, we're doing wound changing. Then we basically clean it up. It has to kind of just like air out a little bit. So we let it stay open for 30 minutes. And then she has to rewrap it. And it's the same thing every single day until I got approved by Kaiser for these visits. But even after I got approved for these visits, I'm still having to do it with her every other day. Mm-hmm. Right. So, yeah, bro,
you're taking me back.
No, exactly. Please.
The whole wound care of it all, and this actually does coincide with insurance, because off the record, my surgeon, keep in mind, I'm doing this all by myself at this point, because my wound wasn't up my entire leg, right? Mine was like this big on my back. And they didn't have the proper dressing at CVS or the pharmacy. So I was doing my wound care myself. So I would hold up my phone and look at the mirror, and that's how I would do it. And then I would lean against the wall so I could like have the tape and like go around. It was the gnarliest thing. But my surgeon clearly was feeling bad about my situation. It was like loss after loss, being defeated with surgeries being denied, then having to go back in, having that infection. So towards the end, and by practice, he probably shouldn't have done this, but humanity, I think, stepped in for him, and I would go in and see him off the record. No appointment, nothing. And he would treat me, and because there was an infection. I was on antibiotics, and I was on antibiotics for like 6 weeks, which is really bad for your body.
Hell yeah, right.
I was taking simultaneously, what's that medicine called that you take for bacteria, for good bacteria?
For good bacteria,
I can't think of it.
I'm not sure. I know some of the antibiotics for bad bacteria, but
yeah, no, right. This is an over-the-counter medicine that I was taking. I can't think of it. To make sure that because the antibiotics kill bacteria, right? Yeah. So this medicine, and I can't believe I'm blanking on it, makes sure that the healthy bacteria stays within.
Good thing we got a computer here. Yeah, but continue talking. I'm gonna look it up right quick.
Google it real quick. So yeah, my situation was pretty wild because I was getting my ass in the car somehow and driving to see my surgeon and the PA, and they would dress my wound in between times of when I was dressing. Probiotic.
Probiotic.
That's
okay,
it. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah,
Was that right?
You're right. You're probiotics.
So yeah, I was taking a probiotic. Yeah, I was taking a probiotic. So again, I think if we should wrap this up, and we were going to talk about pain meds, but I think we can talk about that on next week's episode. We're going to talk about more coping methods. For me, it was walking, and I'm sure walking plays into your recovery.
We'll call it walking.
Walking, yeah. He's got some pimp walk going on. I think I would just stress that while these insurance companies are great, and I am forever grateful for the cost that they have taken off my back. Of course, there's still outstanding payments and stuff. I think there's going to be a societal and a cultural switch and a change, hopefully, because they're under fire right now with Luigi Mangione bringing all this up to the surface and to the forefront of the news. Is just know that they're big corporations and it's all about money and cutting back, and unfortunately that will and may infringe on your recovery.
Yeah, that's same thing. Again, I can't stress enough. I'm grateful for having insurance, because if you don't,
It's huge.
it's one of those things where you don't really know you need it until you need it.
Yeah.
And it's not just a monthly payment that's again an inconvenience. For somebody paying out of pocket, or even if you're covered, if you're on an employer-sponsored plan, it's extremely important. And I'll forever be grateful, because again, the fact that I did have insurance, like, it saved my life. And I think it's something that is, while it is frustrating, I definitely want to just let people know out there, it's not an easy battle, but it is a battle worth fighting. And you're gonna have to fight like hell every single day. You're gonna be pissed off. You're gonna be upset by some of the things that you hear, some of the basic common sense things that you need, such as in my situation, because of the type of insurance that I have, I've been denied an ankle orthosis, which is an AFO for people out there, which basically it keeps your foot able to dorsiflex. It keeps it straight so your foot drop can get back to normal, right? Get back to neutral. But I've been denied by my insurance for that twice. First, it was from my podiatrist. She was like, no, Chris needs this. They denied me. And then I appealed it through through their legal system, and they denied it again because it's not covered in my plan, right? Because I have the bronze plan, prosthetics and orthotics they're not recognized as that. So while I may have to come out of pocket for that, like, again, understand what your insurance provides and what it does not, because I can't necessarily be mad, because that's just how their insurance is set up.
Yeah.
Right. So that was something that that was a punch I had to eat. Right. And it's just like, I get it. I understand businesses are here, but make sure when you're choosing your plans in the open enrollment period, or when you're having your qualifying life events, QLEs out there, make sure you're really reading the fine print on your co-insurance, your co-insurance payments, your what's covered, what is your emergency room cost, what is your urgent care cost, what are your medication costs. Go through that with a fine-tooth comb, because hopefully you don't need it, but at least if you understand what everything is, then you know what's going on, and you're not going to be blindsided like us.
Yeah.
So,
coverage is key for sure.
Yeah. So, yeah. Well, I mean, like I said, we got an extra 15 minutes out of y'all today. It's definitely something that you can tell we're extremely passionate about.
For sure.
And for anybody out there, again, we'd love to know whether you're responding on the comments on Instagram, YouTube. I'm not sure if
we're on TikTok, we're on Twitter.
We're all over the place.
We're all over the place, and please do hit us up. I'm sure we didn't hit every issue that happens with insurance, but we do know a thing or two. Mm-hmm. So please reach out. We're here for you. And I've been sitting way too long, so it's time for me to stand up and stretch. But thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next week on the Chronic Couch.
All right, y'all. Another episode in the books. We'll see y'all soon.